everybody, and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm your host, Stan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. The prestigious Cigar Mile Handicap is the last Grade 1 stakes race in New York in 2019. It features Maximum Security. It features Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile winner Spun to Run. It features a strong supporting cast. DRF Handicappers Mike Beard, David Aragona, and I will take a look at the Cigar Mile, as well as two other interesting two-year-old races from across the country. The Remsen at 9 furlongs at Aqueduct on Saturday, and the Los Alamitos Futurity going a mile and a 16th. Craig Milkowski from Timeform US takes a look at the pace projector for the Demoiselle Stakes for two-year-old fillies on the Cigar undercard, while Nicole Russo's pedigree pick segment focuses on the bloodlines of the horses in the Los Al Futurity. Plus best bets, horses to watch, and lots more. So let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our Horse Watch segment. You can catch David Aragona's Horses to Watch segment on DRFTV every Wednesday at video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. David highlights several horses to follow with his extensive race recap. Mike Beer, Naira analyst, you found one for the folks to follow in New York.
Yeah, I made my Horse to Watch turn decide this week. This is a turf sprinter for Linda Rice by American Pharaoh, who, surprisingly enough, I guess, has turned out to be a really good turf sire with his first crop of runners. Turn Decide didn't debut until September 6th and has run 5 times already. They're getting a lot of work out of him, but I just like the way this horse is developing, Dan. We're going to look at an allowance win from him in last week. This is coming off a quick turnaround. They ran him in the Atlantic Beach Stakes 2 starts back, and that was a deceptively good effort where he was chasing outside on a day when the inside was really the place to be on turf. He ran better than it looks in that race. Linda got him back to the races quickly here, Linda Rice, and he just wins this race very easily with a new top figure. Keeps getting better, Dan. I feel like he's got enough pedigree to stretch out too, so we'll see if they eventually get more ground underneath them going forward.
That was certainly a nice performance for Turn Decide. My Horse Watch at Laurel is Jehoshaphat, and was really not much to watch in this race. She was simply second best in the 38 Go-Go Stakes behind the streaking Vault, who has just been on a roll in the Mid-Atlantic region. We turn into the stretch, and the gray Jehoshaphat been on the lead throughout. Vault is 6-5, and deservedly so, and Vault rolls right by Jehoshaphat. I don't think you really wanted to be on or near the lead or even closer to the rail in this race. Jehoshaphat was on the rail on the backstretch. We saw her drift off in the lane, but I think this might not even be her right surface. She's a Tappet filly, and she's a full to Divining Rod, who was a nice sprinter on the main track, but her Damn Precious Kitten was a 3-time Grade 1 stakes winner on the turf and a full sister to turf champion Kitten's Joy. I think this filly might show up at Tampa Bay over the winner for Arnaud de la Cour, and I think there's a stakes race for her down there if placed in the right spot. So keep an eye on Jehoshaphat later this winter, perhaps down at Tampa Bay. Let's get to some handicapping. The Saturday DRF race of the day is the Cigar Mile. Let's load up the field for Saturday's DRF race of the day. It's the Grade 1 $750,000 Cigar Mile, 1-turn mile at the Big A, carded as race number 10 on Saturday. You can grab free formulator pass performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. And for expanded graded stakes previews of many of the major races all weekend long, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike, we'll get to Maximum Security in a little bit. He's the morning line favorite and expected post-time favorite, but Spun to Run has just been a revelation in his last 2 races.
He really has. Talk about a 3-year-old taking a big step forward at the end of the year. He ran a huge 110 by our speed figure 2 starts back at Parks. And then the question going into the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile was, could he back it up? Well, we're going to see right now that, yes, he can back it up. He got right to the front in this race, Dan, controlled the pace. You see him drifting out a little bit off the turn, but he does not stop running, and he backs up to 110 with a 109, 2 figures that make him really tough in here. 2 gigantic figures. Great ride from Arad Ortiz in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. This horse does not necessarily need the lead. He draws outside Maximum Security in the Cigar Mile. Perhaps that's a little bit of an advantage. He can track that horse, make Maximum Security do a little bit of dirty work. Let's go to our colleague David Aragona and see who he likes in Saturday's Race of the Day.
So I can't get too creative in this Cigar mile. I'm picking Maximum Security. I know he's not going to be that big of a price, but I just think he's the most likely winner of this race, and I prefer him to his main rival, Spun to Run. Maximum Security, he's just a really solid type of 3-year-old who always shows up. Doesn't matter the distance, doesn't matter the pace setup. He just adapts to really anything. And if you look at the Timeform US pace projector for this race, there's not that much speed signed on, and they're predicting that he's going to be on the lead in the early going, and that's just going to make him awfully tough to run down, because we saw last time in the Bold Ruler the kind of finishing kick that he possesses after setting moderate fractions. If he gets a similar type of setup here, I just don't think they're going to be able to reel him in the lane. His main rival, Spun to Run, I prefer Maximum Security to him because I thought Spun to Run got a pretty favorable setup last time in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. I know he's earned a couple of very impressive speed figures twice in a row now, going back to that race at Parks that he won 2 back, but last time out in that Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, Spun to Run was out in front, out of that kickback that was so detrimental to a lot of the horses that were behind him, including the runner-up Omaha Beach. Today he might find himself chasing Maximum Security, and I just think that's going to be a tougher situation for Spun to Run, so Maximum Security, in my view, has the upper hand in this Cigar mile.
I am not going to argue with Maximum Security being the horse to beat. I'm not going to argue with either of the 3-year-olds in this race. Maximum Security, Spun to Run. They look like the 2 horses to beat. I'm going to take a small shot against them with a big price in this race. Number 7, Nicodemus. I'm not going to, make some big argument for this horse. He's obviously a long shot in here, and he's going to need to catch a lot of breaks as he comes back off the layoff in a race like this. But I just felt like there was a chance that the 2 favorites really hook up early in this race. That's what I'm hoping for, at least. Nicodemus would benefit from that kind of a situation because he will run late in this race. I just think he's a little bit underrated. I think some of his races are better than they may look on paper. And this 1-turn mile is what this horse really wants. I'm expecting this horse to come running at the end at a big price.
Won the Westchester at a 1-turn mile. Might have been up against it from a pace scenario. Situation in his last 2 races sprinting. Giant price on Nicodemus. Going to have to do it off of a layoff. I'm with Aragona in here. I like Maximum Security. I'll chalk out. Liked his performance in the Bold Ruler most recently. Let's take a look at that race. Remember, he missed a lot of time with colic issues, etc. He made the front in here. He put away 2 other pace horses, and this is basically a ridden out victory. Luis Saez doesn't get the bat out in the stretch, and he handles these horses very nicely. I think because he's inside Spun to Run, he's got to go. I think he's going to make the lead. It's all about how much pressure Spun to Run applies to this horse on the turn. If he is able to create separation, as he did in the Bold Ruler, this horse has got a tremendous amount of natural talent, and maybe he's just found his wheelhouse as a miler. We know all about the trials and turbulations of Maximum Security this year in the Kentucky Derby, etc. I'll go with Maximum Security in the Cigar mile. Nicole Russo's pedigree pick segment focuses on 2-year-olds out west in the Los Alamitos Futurity. Let's go to Nicole.
Hi everyone, Nicole Russo coming to you for Out of the Gate to take a look at the pedigree of one of the key contenders in a short but interesting field for the Los Alamitos Futurity on Saturday. The 4-horse field, which we'll take a look at now, includes the 2nd and 3rd place finishers from the Breeders' Cup Juvenile in Anno d'Or and Wrecking Crew, Grade 3 winner High Velocity, and $1 million yearling 1,000 Words, who won his debut. I want to take a closer look at Wrecking Crew, both because he's eligible to improve off his last start, and because he's from the first crop of a very interesting freshman sire whose progeny may be about to start finding their best stride as 3-year-olds. Wrecking Crew, and we'll take a look here both at the replays of his maiden win at Del Mar, immediately followed by his troubled trip 3rd at the Juvenile last out, is from the first crop of Sky Kingdom. Now, he was a minor winner at ages 2 and 3, but really blossomed as a 4-year-old. Winning the Grade 3 Tokyo City Cup at a 1.5 miles, he repeated in that race at age 6. His multiple graded placings as an older horse also included a 3rd at the Grade 1 Hollywood Gold Cup behind Game On Dude. Sky Kingdom also bred to be a classic stallion, being by Empire Maker, whose branch of the Unbridled line has been so active recently, and from the female family of AP Indy and Summer Squall. Sky Kingdom only has 4 winners to date, and Wrecking Crew is his first and only stakes horse. However, I'm thinking his progeny haven't gotten a chance to do their best work yet. Looking at his race record and pedigree, you're certainly going to expect them to develop with time. More importantly, you're going to expect them to develop with distance, which is going to start becoming increasingly important on the road to the Spring Classics. So this information isn't just intended as a reason to watch Wrecking Crew on Saturday, again, coming out of a troubled trip in the juvenile. It's a reminder to watch out for the stallion's late blooming foals throughout this coming year as they get a little older, and maybe find some value plays on those late bloomers. Our team will bring you more on this weekend's 2-year-old graded stakes action at Los Alamitos, as well as at Aqueduct on Out of the Gate after this break.
Are you a horse player looking to raise your game? For over 120 years, expert handicappers have relied on Daily Racing Form as their must-have source for news and data, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures, Timeform US pace figures, and integrated replays. DRF Formulator is the most powerful handicapping tool on the market today. Use what the pros use. Go to drf.com/formulator and enter code DRFTV to get your first card free. drf.com. Raise your game.
Storm from Racing Blue, a breakthrough in sports nutrition for horses.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Let's throw up the field for the Remsen Stakes at Aqueduct on Saturday. Carded as race number 9, a grade 2. $250,000 is the purse. 2-year-olds perhaps taking their first baby steps on the road to the Kentucky Derby. For expanded stakes previews of all the major races this weekend, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Forza d'Oro 3-1 slight morning line favorite. David Aragona, who makes the line at the Naira tracks, going with a 15-1 shot. Let's hear from David.
I found this Remsen to be one of the most competitive stakes races on the card on Saturday because while I do respect the shorter prices in this race, those runners including the number 2 Forza d'Oro, who might be the favorite, as well as the Todd Pletcher trained pair of Chase Tracker and Alpha 66, this is also a race where you can make a legitimate case for some bigger prices because there's really not a lot separating the favorites from those that are going to be double-digit odds, especially in terms of speed figures when you start to look through this field, because the likely favorite Forza d'Oro, he hasn't really run that fast yet. There are reasons to like him beyond the speed figures that he's run, but there are others in this race that have run numbers that are right in line with him that are going to be much bigger prices. I want to take a look at the number 7, Prince James, who I've got at 15-1 on the morning line here. In his debut at Monmouth, he earned a 95 Timeform US speed figure, and I like the way that he did it. That number puts him in the mix here, and he won that race going away at the end like a horse was going to have no trouble stretching out and getting added distance. Next time out at Churchill Downs, they tried a nominators of 1 allowance race, and I know his buyer dipped down, his Timeform US speed figure dipped down. I just didn't think that race really set up for him because the eventual winner got loose on a clear lead through moderate to slow fractions. Nobody really made up any ground in this race except this horse, Prince James, who was passing runners in the stretch. Thought he finished up decently, and I like that they're getting ambitious off that performance. They're not swaying from the plan, and they're moving on to this grade 2 Remsen. I think the 9 furlongs is going to be perfect for him. He's got plenty of pedigree to stretch out in distance, being a son of Tisnow, out of a dam who was a half-sister to Don't Forget Gil, who was second in the grade 1 coaching club American Oaks a number of years ago. So I just think Prince James is a really good fit for this race, and I'm not going to be surprised if he or any of these 2-year-olds takes a slight step forward on the speed figure scale, and that could make him good enough to upset this field.
I am going to go with the morning line favorite in this race, the 2 Forza d'Oro. We'll see what happens with this horse. He's a little bit slow on paper. I don't think the figures sort of represent the talent this horse has shown in his first 2 starts, though. We have a replay right now of his second career start. It's worth noting that in his career debut, he actually ran very, very well after a disaster at the start. And this race, his second start, just way more professional early, sitting in behind the lead the entire way. Didn't even get taken clear until about the 3/16 pole, and he's just going to win this race very easily. I know that the figure just comes back and suggests that he didn't improve off of his debut, but I think he actually improved a lot and won very easily. I don't want to go too short on him, Dan, but I feel like this horse is bred to stretch out. I think he's a lot better than the figures make him look.
Great inside post position, would benefit if the pace is solid up front, but I think he's adaptable if he breaks. We saw in the debut it was a disastrous break, but that replay, Mike, it was almost like a workout where you put a horse in behind horses and then you let him roll in the stretch. This horse has a tremendous amount of natural talent. I had a tough time in the Remsen. I'm going with a big bomb. The number 5, Informative, is still a maiden going out for Uriah St. Louis, a guy that occasionally pops at a big price. We remember Discreet Lover a few years ago winning a grade 1 race in New York at giant odds. Let's watch Informative's last race, a stakes placing at Laurel. He didn't break very well in this race. He's down towards the inside and last. He's going to angle to the inside here. The horse in the blue cap's going to kind of drift in front of him, so he's going to get to the outside again. He'll eventually get to the outside of the pace setter, and he comes with a good run in this race, and after the race is over, he galloped out really well. It'll be interesting to see how he handles stepping up in class, stretching out 3 furlongs. There are some classy middle distance influences in his pedigree, horses like, Roman Ruler and El Corredor. I'm just taking a shot here with Informative, hoping that maybe he can stay a little bit close to the pace on the stretch out, and off that 78 Beyer speed figure is actually fairly competitive. Take a shot with Informative, giant price in the Remsen. Let's move from New York to California. We'll stay with the 2-year-olds. The Los Alamitos Futurity's up next. Only 4 horses entered this year's Grade 2 Los Alamitos Futurity, but as you take a look at the names, you see that there's some quality. The 1 Anno d'Or, the 2 Wrecking Crew just finished 2nd and 3rd respectively in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. The 3,000 Words, the 4 High Velocity, a combined 3 for 3 for trainer Bob Baffert. For expanded stakes previews of many of the major races all weekend long, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike Anno d'Or came out of nowhere to finish 2nd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Sure, he was impressive, winning his career debut on the turf, but the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, I think, is more known for a race where there were a lot of notable no-shows instead of the horses that dominated up front.
Yeah, well, that's certainly the case. The 2 favorites in the race just really didn't get a chance to run their race necessarily. And so when it left it kind of wide open in the stretch for Anno d'Or and Wrecking Crew, and we'll look at the stretch run of that race right now, they both sat good trips, sort of right up close to the pace, and they're just going to battle all the way to the wire here. It looks like Anno d'Or has a real chance to pull off a huge upside here. He just can't quite get by. Listen, I don't want to shortchange either of these 2 horses. I don't want to knock them too much off of this race, but I'm just not sure how much stock I want to put into this race right now.
It's a fair point to be sure. Anno d'Or was wide on the turn, made a big run into contention, just couldn't go by the horse that was up close to the pace throughout. It'll be interesting to see how he deals with the long stretch and perhaps a paceless race with only 4 horses entered. Our colleague David Aragona, perhaps looking at the longest price in a short field angle, has his pick.
So while it's not the largest field in the world, to say the least, in this Los Alamitos Futurity, at least you can say that you can make a valid case for each of the 4 runners that are signed on. The likely favorite's going to be the number 3,000 Words for Bob Baffert. I know Baffert has a pretty terrifying record in this race over the past several years, having won it a number of years in a row. 1,000 Words was impressive winning his debut last time. He had to work pretty hard to get the job done, but he beat a nice horse in doing so, earned an 88 Beyer speed figure, a 115 time formula speed figure. A repeat of either of those numbers would make him really tough here. Bob Baffert has great stats putting blinkers on, especially in graded stakes races, so I respect 1,000 Words. I just think he's going to be a pretty short price in this pretty small field, and I want to take a look at some other horses. My top pick is actually the one that might be the biggest price in this race, and that's the number 2 Wrecking Crew. He finished 3rd last time out in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and typically a placing in a race like the Breeders' Cup Juvenile would make any horse coming out of that race a pretty short price in their next start, but this year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile was a bit of an aberration because it was just dominated by long shots. Actually, the 28-1 second place finisher Anno d'Or is also in this race, but whereas Anno d'Or was outside stalking the entire way in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile, Wrecking Crew was in behind horses, taking dirt in his face for about the first 7 furlongs of that race, and I think that's important to note because the kickback situation was particularly intense during that week at Santa Anita, and it was really detrimental to horses trying to close from off the pace. So I do want to upgrade Wrecking Crew's performance a little bit. Just seems like he's doing really well right now for Peter Miller. He's always been bred to get better with distance, being a son of Sky Kingdom, who was a graded stakes winner going 1.5 miles. I just think he's moving ahead at the right time, and he's going to be a good price in this Los Alamitos Futurity.
Well, I had no real interest in getting clever in this race. We'll see what happens. I didn't really want the 2 horses out of that Breeders' Cup Juvenile we looked at earlier. I'm just going to take the Baffert horse, 1,000 Words. They paid $1 million for this horse by Pioneer the Nile. Baffert has been very open about the fact that he just wants to stretch this horse out in distance. He skipped the Bob Hope at 7 furlongs last month to await this race, and he did it off of this career debut that this horse ran at Santa Anita. Listen, I know it's a race he was supposed to win. He's a short price in here as a high-priced purchase for Baffert, but I just like the way that he won it. Very game through the stretch to come close down this front runner, a horse who had experience, by the way. I just like the way this horse won, and I feel like the added distance is going to work to his advantage in here.
I'm with you, Mike. I'm going with 1,000 Words in here. To me, it looked a little bit like Game Winner in this race. Maybe not the most brilliant horse in the world, but like the way he dug down and fought all the way to the wire to beat that horse at Santa Anita. You mentioned that Baffert wants to stretch him out. It appears he's got enough speed where he's either going to make the lead or sit off of his stablemate. We'll find out how good he is. Right now, this division is ripe for the picking, maybe waiting for a new face to grab the brass ring, and it could be Bob Baffert's 1,000 Words. Baffert dominated the Los Alamitos Futurity in recent years. Let's go to Craig Milkowski for his Timeform U.S. Pace Projector segment. This week, Craig talks about the Demoiselle for 2-year-old fillies going a demanding 9 furlongs.
Hi, this is Craig Milkowski at Timeform US for this week's edition of Out of the Gate. This week, I'm going to take a look at the Grade 2 Demoiselle Stakes being run at Aqueduct as the 8th race on Saturday. It's part of a big stakes card featuring the Cigar Mile. But I chose this race because it's a race highlighted by our pace projector as one that's expected to have a fast pace. We'll start out looking at the preview page, and you can see some of the reason why that is the case. I've highlighted a bunch of the horses, underlined them in red, that have running styles of leader, speed, or tracker, and are expected to contribute to that pace. And in addition, it's a race where we have a full field of 12 entered, and field size is one of the conditions which determine whether that flag is displayed or not, and a field of 12 is almost not a certainty to have a fast pace, but certainly more likely than if the field was a smaller size. Let's take just a bit closer look at that pace projector. And another reason that I chose this race is not only the big field and that there's several speeds in here, but also the fact that they're closely grouped up on the front end. So not only will the pace be fast, it's likely to be contested. And that's going to lead to my selection in here, who's a horse who has shown she can come from off the pace. But first, let's take a look at some of those speeds, a little bit closer look. And one thing you want to keep in mind, this race is at 1 1/8. It's the longer any of these fillies have ever attempted to run before. And, you know, as lately race horses stretch out, a lot of them have trouble rationing out that speed. That's something that comes with maturity. So we'll see Miss Marissa. She was the 4-horse shown early on that pace projector. And she's a horse you can see from her PP. She's shown speed. She even showed speed sprinting in her debut. She stretched out 2 times since. It's been right up near the front. Blaine Debbie's another who didn't quite show as much speed sprinting early, but her second time out, she went wire to wire when stretched out to that 1 1/16, 2 turns at Keeneland. And then we also have Lake Avenue, who's on the outside. She's a 12 horse. She's actually one of the lower prices on the morning line. I think she's second or third choice at 9-2. The morning line wasn't part of our PPs when I'm recording this, but it is out right now. But Lake Avenue's a horse who hasn't been further than 7 furlongs. She went wire to wire going 7 furlongs. So you would expect her at the distance of 1 1/8 to show similar speed. Of the 3, she is probably the most likeliest winner. As I said, she's one of the lowest on the morning line, but she also has that nice 106 Timeform US speed figure. But I think it's going to be a little bit tough for her from that far outside post facing a bunch of other speed in here and just the big field. So let's take a look at some of the horses I think are more likely to win in here. Actually, I say that, but one I'm against, who's pretty low on the morning line, I think she's either the favorite or the second choice, is Alondra. She's a Chug McGahee trained filly. And while she does have our best Timeform US late pace rating, and it would seem to set up for her, she just hasn't been quite good enough for me. Now, granted, she did have some trouble at the start in that Alcibiades Stakes at Keeneland last time out. She did finish fairly nice. She didn't really make any impact on the top 2, but she did rally up in the third. But at a short price, I'm going to have trouble taking a horse that's going to have to improve several lengths to win here. So, well, it wouldn't shock me if she won. She's one I'm going to be against. Next, we'll move to Madian, I guess is how we say it. She ran a nice 101 Timeform US speed figure, going a 1-turn mile last time out. She's been improving. She has a nice late pace rating, but she's also one of the top picks. I do think she has a pretty good shot in here, but she's also not going to be my selection. Maybe I'd use her in exotics or if I were playing horizontals. I would want to include her. But the horse I'm going to go with is a New York bred filly named Critical Value. She's trained by Jeremiah Englehart. And there's a few things I like about her. With these being 2-year-olds, I'm not necessarily looking for a big, deep closer to kind of take advantage of that fast pace. I want a horse with some tactical speed that's shown she can finish off the race. And that's exactly what she's done. She's getting better each time. You can see her ascending speed figures from a 77 in her debut up to a 101 last time. But more importantly, last time out, she showed that ability to rate while stretching out to the furthest distance she had been, a mile, a one-turn mile at Belmont. She was able to rate off of a tepid pace. I mean, it wasn't much at all, and she still finished strongly. Granted, the field wasn't as good as this one, but I just like the combination that she's offering of tactical speed, the ability to finish, and most important, she is showing some value. She's listed at 8-1 on the morning line, and I think she's got a good shot in here. So she's going to be my selection. That does it for this week for Timeform US on Out of the Gate, and I'll see you again next week in my Pace Projector segment.
Time for our Best Bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Our colleague David Aragona has something for you at Aqueduct on Saturday.
My best bet of this weekend comes in the 8th race on Saturday at Aqueduct. It's the Grade 2 Demoiselle going 1 1/8 on the main track for the 2-year-old fillies, and it's a really competitive field signed on. I think this is a spot where you can search for some value. I respect the favorites, the number 5 Alondra and the number 2 Maydeen, who are likely to take a lot of support, but I want to shop for a horse that's going to be in that 6 to 10-1 range, and my top pick here is the number 10 Daphne Moon. This is a filly that I was really impressed by when she won her debut at Saratoga. It's really tough for a juvenile to win going 7 furlongs first time out, especially at a meet like Saratoga where the competition is so stiff. And Daphne Moon, looking at this video here, did it really well. She looped the field around the far turn after breaking not that well in the early going. She was last heading down the backstretch. She really finished off this race strongly, eventually drawing away to win by over 3 lengths, like a filly who's going to have no trouble stretching out further in distance. They tried a pretty tough spot second time out for her in the Grade 1 Frisette, and I don't think she ran quite as badly as her 5th place finish would indicate, because she stumbled very badly at the start of that race and was just out of position through the early going. That race was dominated on the front end by Wicked Whisper. It was a spot where nobody really made up any ground from the back of the pack, and Daphne Moon was just never in a real spot to get into the race. She was weaving through traffic coming to the quarter pole, was inside taking kickback behind horses coming through the lane. Just don't think she had a chance to show what she could really do that day. She's put together a steady work tap coming into this race, her 3rd career start. She's supposed to love the 1 1/8 distance and the 2 turns, and the Timeform US Pace Projector is predicting a fast pace for her to close into, so I think this might be the right spot for Daphne Moon, and if I can get that 8-1 on the morning line, I'd certainly be satisfied with that price.
My best bet will come in race number 3 at Aqueduct, the Dirt Sprint for 20 claimers. The horse I like is number 4, I'm an Ocala Dude. A couple things that I like about this horse. First of all, I have some questions about the 2 horses who are going to be the shorter prices in his main competition in here. And I'm an Ocala Dude is sort of repeating a pattern here that he made last year. Off of a race at Saratoga for 40, where he didn't run that well. He got a layoff from Michelle Nevin, came back last December early in the Aqueduct meet and ran this race we're going to look at right now. Dropped in class and just absolutely buried a field with a new career top figure, and he's sort of doing the same thing here. We haven't seen this horse since August at Saratoga for 40. He returns in early December, dropping in class to the right kind of a spot. I'm a little worried about 7 furlongs for him, but if he can get it, I think this is the right spot for him. And Michelle Nevin is off to a very fast start at Aqueduct, and she's been bringing horses off the layoff firing so far this meet.
My best bet's at Laurel, race 5, number 5. That's Torch of Truth, the second choice on the morning line. It looks like this horse has been privately purchased since his most recent race. He's now with trainer Michael Trombetta. His most recent start was a 7 furlong sprint at Laurel, and all the way through the backstretch till about the 3/16 pole, you see him in between and in among. Right now he got to the outside. It's too late. Tappin' Cat, the horse on the lead, is long gone. Tappin' Cat is in razor-sharp form. He came back to win his next start, only to be disqualified with a big figure. I like how Torch the Truth closed in this race to finish second at a distance that I believe is too short for him, 7 furlongs. He's now going to be able to stretch out at Laurel on Saturday, has the tactical speed to get the jump on the favorite turning into the stretch, and this horse has just shown improvement since being stretched out in distance. So I like him getting another jump up in distance. Torch of Truth. Good second last time out behind the sharp Tappin' Cat. We thank you so much for watching Out of the Gate, and we urge you to follow all of DRFTV's latest offerings on social media. Please follow on Twitter at DRF Video. And for the latest news and notes from America's Turf Authority, Daily Racing Form, please follow on Twitter at DRF Inside Post. That's it for this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.